Oh, here we go. She's on MSNBC. Let's see.
Some new insight from Vice President Kamala Harris. 66 days since her inauguration. She had a very busy week. Last night criticizing Georgia's new voting law. And earlier in the week, she was appointed as the administration point person on the border crisis. Harris also swore in 2 cabinet members and visited a COVID vaccination site in Florida. In one interview, she spoke about the scientists who helped develop the vaccines. She took a look back.
I think about
Museum.
There we go.
Susan Whiting, she chairs the board of the National Women's History Museum.
The chair of the National Women's History Museum for Fourth Wave Feminism. This is the chair. Let's see. Let's see what she has to say. Not so erudite. Let's find out how much this woman loves the nuclear family and is very pro. Let's just find out. I got a feeling she's not. Anybody else got a feeling she's probably not? Here we go again. Ready? Let's just make sure.
National Women's History Museum.
Chair of the National Women's History Museum. I just went over their fourth wave feminists. Let's see what she has to say.
And with a big welcome to you. You know, as I think about what we just heard there, some vice presidents shy away from the spotlight, but that doesn't seem to be the case with Kamala Harris. As the first female biracial vice president, how important in your mind is her visibility?
Oh, it's incredibly important because what we know is that if you can see someone, you can be like them. You can picture that opportunity ahead of you. And so all the firsts that she's had are things we need to celebrate and talk about and write and make sure that people understand that that possibility exists for them. So the more examples we have like that, the better.
Which I think
of empowered boss babes. Got it.
Will lead into this next question I ask you, because in the interview that we just heard, the vice president made it a point to name one of those scientists, Dr. Corbett, a scientist there, as a key player behind the COVID-19 vaccines. Why, in your mind, is it important that the vice president points out accomplishments like those of Dr. Corbett?
Well, gee. Don't tell me she's an intersectional feminist. No way. No way.
Well, it's very important because now we know her name.
Yeah.
And that's an incredible example. But there are so many other scientists, for example, but women who've really led in many different ways whose names we do not know. And when you don't know that all those people have contributed to what makes, our American history and what we're doing currently happen, you don't understand the possibility and respect really the accomplishment. So that it's incredibly important to call this out.
Oh.
You know, something, I've heard the saying that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. She mentioned her mom and her mom's efforts to cure breast cancer and looking back really with admiration at her mother. This is a big...
Well, she didn't. I'm just pointing it out. She didn't cure it.
...part of your work. Right, Susan? I mean, studying the accomplishments of other women, those who helped pave the way?
Yes. In our work with the National Women's History Museum, that's what we do. We really shine a light on all the examples we can find and ones we're still discovering of women's accomplishments. And it's meant to inspire women, obviously, and girls, but it's
to become boss babes.
Also incredibly important for boys and men to understand and participate in this because it is our history.
Oh, sounds very, very patriarchal. Sounds very much like she's very, very pro-man.
Not just women's history. And so showing these examples and making it possible for people to understand what's happened in our collective history is really critically important. And mothers, we all have one,
right?
Are a way to connect to that.
Yeah. Something I want to focus on, which is that your museum installed the artwork, Vice President Kamala Harris glass ceiling breaker. It was at the Lincoln Memorial last month. Tell me about that.
Oh, that's such an exciting opportunity for us. So in collaboration with BBH, which is a creative agency in New York, and with Chief, an organization of...
So let's see. She's pro-abortion, right? Focuses only on female accomplishments, says that men need to get behind female accomplishments. Yeah, this is our fourth wave feminist chair of the Women's Museum, right? Got it.
Leading women. We put this amazing piece of art that...
She didn't break the glass ceiling, though, just so you know.
by literally shattering glass creates a portrait, and it is a portrait clearly at a moment where the vice president had shattered many glass ceilings and a whole list of firsts. So we put this piece of art at the foot of the Lincoln Memorial, and it was there for about 5 days. And we had reactions from literally all over the world. People wrote about it. I think it's inspired a lot of people, and it was both an interesting and...
Yeah, I'm just curious because where these chicks go once, right? They go multiple times. Let's see what else Susan Whitting of the Women's Museum has to say. I'm sure she's done more than one appearance. Oh, look. Here we go.
Hello, this is Dr. Nancy O'Reilly, and I would like to welcome you to Smart Amazing Conversations with Dr. Nancy, a podcast that takes a look at stories of life and leadership for smart, amazing women and men like you.
The most important thing is showing up. Don't think that you have to bring anything. Bring yourself, show up, and remain steadfast and be a...
If you are in a position of leadership and a position of management, bring women along with you.
Supporting women is my and my purpose. And talking with other women and men who promote women's leadership is one of my favorite things to do.
I've yet to meet a woman who did not know what she really wanted. She was just either afraid to ask the questions or she was afraid of what the answer.
I mean, this really just seems like regular run-of-the-mill feminism to me so far, but let's find out more as Susan Whitting, the head chair of this institute, comes in. Let's see how pro-family she is.
And then, of course, the parent company. She also became Nielsen's first chief diversity officer.
Of course she did.
In her role.
First chief diversity officer. Of course.
There as vice chair, and led the efforts to create a highly successful global diversity and inclusive program.
Boy, that sure sounds like advocation of the nuclear and cross-generational family, doesn't it, guys? Doesn't that sound like that? The global chair for every diversity board you can think of. For inclusivity. That sounds like, I don't know, the opposite of the advocation of the traditional family to me. But what the do I know? I'm just some guy on the internet, you know?
Susan has also given many keynotes as keynote speeches, spoken at major international conferences, and delivered expert testimony to the Senate subcommittee and the FTC. She has written several articles on thought leadership and and consumer measurement, and is recognized as being the leader in understanding consumer behavior and operating in information services and data companies. She currently serves on the board for several publicly held traded companies and also acts as an advisor to private companies and early stage venues.
Gee, I wonder what she does with those private companies. I wonder if any of them are NGOs, which advocate for feminist causes like abortion and the destruction of the nuclear family. What do you want to bet if we did a deep dive on Susan Whitting and the NGOs that she's with, that we would find out that a lot of them really don't like the nuclear family very much? Anybody want to take that bet? Any of you liberals want to take that bet? Any of you? Any of you want to take that bet? Yeah. Let's see what she has to say.
Tiny startup business that was supporting
women in our history who have done amazing things, from science.
All these stories about women who had contributed to our entire nation's history, but whose stories weren't told. And then I'll just add the part that I loved connecting from my Nielsen experience was doing some of the actual research and counting.
That is kind of funny, Citizen Arcane.
Were in any of our textbooks or curriculum. And something so basic as understanding that and then being able to talk to people about it opens people's eyes, and they say, how's that possible?
So standpoint theory.
Possible, but it is possible.
Yeah.
Our mission is.
But we now know who was writing the history books, don't we?
Yes.
It was the evil patriarchy who was writing the history books, wasn't it?
Yes. But there's every woman has a story, and every family has stories that they probably either talk about within their group or have forgotten. And the opportunity, I think, to recognize women's names for what they've done.
Don't have any idea of, but this history is their history. I mean, these women that we're talking about and going to continue to share stories are women that each one of us has and will benefit from. So, okay, and again, a lot of people I don't think know about the National Women's History Museum, and I hate to say that, but I'm gonna throw that out there. But the museum itself has been in existence. Tell us a little bit about the history of the museum.
So it's this year 26 years old. It started as a group of women who moved the statue of the 3 women suffrage leaders that had been in the basement of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C.
Oh, these fourth wave feminists wanted to glorify the suffrage leaders. I am shocked. They did? They wanted to glorify them? All those ones that erudite disagrees with who wanted all that antinatalism? No. No. No, you got to do the Skywalker no. 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 No.
A statue that was given by a woman sculptor
Or the
to the
Palpatine
nation
no
as a
is even
gift
better. No.
to celebrate the signing of the 19th Amendment, the
Ah.
ratification of the 19th Amendment.
Mhm.
It was in the Capitol Rotunda for a very short period of time and then put away in the basement. So this group spent money, raised
course.
money, got approval eventually to move the statue up to the Capitol Rotunda, and then said there must be a place for women's history, a bigger place. And that started a long process of building awareness and working toward the idea of having a building to represent the history and the accomplishments. But in the meantime, they were very smart, and they built a website because they said the only way we're going to have access to this information in the meantime is if we have a different way for people leading us to work with the library, and we are, in putting on programs in person, but also, virtual. We've already done some of that during Women's History Month. So it's really exciting. It's a different model. We like it also with the idea that we can teach people in this experience and in this library about how to bring their family's history, which is something the library is very
and outsourcing all the information. And what do I do?
So we will get to that place eventually. Where we're going to start is an exhibit, a big program.
Yeah.
Where we got people's input, for what the U.S. Mint was going to do for women on quarters.
We haven't gotten.
Should be, because you've been such an extraordinary supporter, and just forever virtually, but we put on all kinds of things with the library. The next thing that's going to happen that will be open to the public that we know for sure, and we're developing these every day, is a program on June 10th. It's a showing of the film on Wilma, who is one of the 5 women in 2022 to be on the new set of quarters. And she
Wilma, no kidding,
was, the first woman to head the Cherokee Nation and an activist. And this film is produced by Gail Hurd, who we've honored also, who's a really
a bunch of antinatalist propagandists.
Amazing filmmaker. So there'll be a showing of the film. Her family will be there, and then we'll have a reception. But the actual film and that event are open to the public. You have to register. There'll be more.
So they're running a propaganda film on Wilma. Who's Wilma? Let's find out. Wilma is, oh man. Oh, this is great. Hang on. The biography of Wilma, the first principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. She's also the first woman elected as chief of a major native tribe. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Man, married from 63 to 67, and her 2 daughters moved back to Oklahoma after a divorce. Her activism continued where she founded Community Development Department for Cherokee Nation, focusing on improving access to water, housing, and abortion rights. Yeah, of course. Was elected to serve principal chief to 85. She led for 10 years, guiding sovereign nation population doubled in her tenure. Prior to being elected principal chief, she served as deputy principal chief. Now, how do you think they got doubled? How did it get doubled in 10 years? You think it's because they're having more babies, or because it was the case that they were able to be more inclusive of who they considered part of the tribe to be? So that's the propaganda of her. Let's take a look at her works that are cited. Yeah, I'm glad that the fourth wave feminists are promoting a woman named Wilma. I'm sure that's just a coincidence, you know? I'm sure that's just a coincidence.